Abigail's eyes widened. "Please don't," she begged through tears. "Don't sell our home, don't do this because of me." But he slowly shook his head. "I can't stand by and let you spend your life in jail. You did nothing wrong, and I'll prove it." She tried to persuade him to change his mind, but he wouldn't. Still, not everyone treated Abigail with compassion. One afternoon, a friend came to visit her at the station. With arms crossed, she shook her head. "I warned you," she said coldly. "You're always too kind. Every time someone's in need, you rush to help. Look where it got you." Abigail sighed. Her eyes were tired but calm. "God will defend me," she said quietly. The friend scoffed. "Where is that God now while you're locked behind bars? If you had just minded your business like everyone else, you'd be home by now. But no, you helped a boy. And now, if they don't find him, you could spend the rest of your life in prison." The words pierced Abigail's heart like a knife. But she said nothing. She lowered her eyes and stayed silent. Deep inside, she was still holding on to hope, hoping that somehow God would come through for her. What people didn't know was that Abigail was a rare kind of person. She couldn't ignore someone in pain and walk away. Even when she had nothing, she would find a way to help. Yes, her kindness had caused her problems before, but never anything like this. And even now, locked in a cell, bearing the heavy burden of a false accusation, she still believed she had done the right thing. That night, when the noise at the station quieted down, Abigail knelt on the floor and cried out to God. "Why me, Lord?" she sobbed. "I didn't do anything wrong. I only helped a hungry child. Now my case is in court. Please, God, help me. If I stay here, who will take care of my husband and daughter?" Tears streamed down her face as she poured out her heart. But she didn't stop there. She also prayed for James. "Wherever he is, Lord, please protect him. Keep him safe. Let no harm come to him. Let him find kindness, just like I tried to give him." While Abigail was still locked in the police cell, James was alone behind a house in Lagos. During the day, he wandered the streets, and at night he returned to sleep behind the same house. But something strange happened one night. James felt too scared to sleep out in the open, so he crawled behind some flowers in front of a large house and tried to rest there. As he drifted off, he suddenly heard footsteps getting closer. His heart pounded, but he remained completely still, hidden in the flowers. Then a man appeared at the gate. The man wore a long black robe and was barefoot, his steps nearly silent. He began to chant strange words and carefully sprinkled red powder in front of the gate. Over and over he called out the same name. "Madam Judith must die. Madam Judith must not live past this week. Spirits I serve, come and take the soul of Madam Judith." He repeated this several times before vanishing. Into the night, James heard every word, but was frozen with fear. He didn't dare move or make a sound. The next morning, James lingered near the house. He wanted to warn someone inside, but when he saw the red powder spread across the gate, fear held him back. Around 7 a.m., the heavy gate creaked open slowly. A shiny car rolled out of the compound. James suddenly ran forward and stood right in front of it. "Stop! Stop!" he shouted. The driver slammed the brakes and got out, clearly annoyed. "Get out of the way," he barked, but the woman in the car stepped out as well. She spoke gently. "Let him be." She moved closer to James, but James raised his hand and said firmly, "Please don't step past the gate." The woman halted, looking confused. "What? This is my own home. Why can't I walk past my own gate?" James's voice trembled, but he repeated, "Please, madam, don't cross the gate." She looked at him carefully, now concerned. "What's going on?" James began to explain what he had overheard that dreadful night. "I heard a man come and pour something by the gate. He said, 'Madam Judith must die. She must not live beyond this week.'" Her eyes widened in shock. "Oh Lord, protect me. That's my name," she cried. At that moment, she realized James was telling the truth. Hands shaking, she grabbed her phone and called her pastor, repeating everything James had said. "Thank you, my dear," Madam Judith said quietly. She remained inside and announced to everyone, "No one is to cross the gate." About 30 minutes later, her pastor arrived with 2 church members. They prayed intensely for nearly 3 hours. He anointed the gate with oil and declared, "You can cross now. No harm will come to you." Madam Judith cancelled all her appointments and stayed home the entire day, still feeling uneasy. She called James inside and thanked him sincerely. "Young man, what were you doing by my house that made you witness such a thing?" she asked, her tone full of curiosity. James looked down and responded softly, "I have nowhere else to stay. That's where I sleep." Madam Judith leaned in closer. "Who are you? Where are you from?" James took a deep breath and began to tell his story. "I'm an orphan. I live with my uncle in the village. I wanted to go to school, but he told me to stop and work on the farm every day or leave his house. Even when I worked hard on the farm, he still beat me constantly." James slowly took off his tattered shirt and turned his back to Madam Judith. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the scars across his back. "My God!" she gasped. "Who could be so cruel to a child, especially an orphan?" She gave James breakfast. When he finished eating, he knelt before her and pleaded, "Please, let me stay here. Let me be your houseboy." She smiled warmly and shook her head. "A houseboy? No. You're more than that to me. You can live here as long as you like. I'll treat you like my own son." Madam Judith was a successful businesswoman. After years of childless marriage, her husband left her for another woman. Since then, she had tried raising other children, but it never worked out. Helping her relatives' kids often led to conflict with her family, but when James entered her life, she felt it was divine intervention. She decided to care for him like a son. The following Monday, she enrolled James in a prestigious private school. Meanwhile, Abigail was still battling her case in court. After several hearings, the judge finally released her, saying there was no solid evidence she had kidnapped James or played a role in his disappearance. However, freedom didn't end her troubles. The state's Ministry of Education suspended her indefinitely without pay. She returned to her husband and daughter. Since they had sold their house, the 3 of them squeezed into a tiny room. Life was tough. Her husband barely earned enough to feed them. Without work, Abigail started frying yam and selling it in front of their home. People who knew her story pitied her. Many called her foolish for helping James, but Abigail remained steadfast. She still gave free yams to hungry neighborhood children, especially orphans. Years passed, but things didn't improve. Poverty remained. The ministry never lifted her suspension. Her daughter Joy graduated from a college of education but couldn't find a job, so she joined her mother frying yam. Meanwhile, James had graduated from the university and was now running Madam Judith's business empire. She had adopted him legally as her son and included him in her will. James managed 3 of her companies, all thriving. One day, he felt the need to return to his village. On that memorable day, he traveled back and received a warm welcome. Many were shocked to see him. They had assumed he was dead. His uncle and wife were not only surprised but also nervous due to their past actions, yet they tried to get close, hoping to benefit from his success. They asked for forgiveness, and James forgave them. They sat together and reflected on his departure and everything that followed afterward. They even discussed how Abigail was once accused of stealing James and the hardship she endured because of that. James was moved to tears as he listened, then asked, "Where is she now?" They told him she had gone back to her village. James pressed further. "Which village? Please give me the address." Without hesitation, he got into his car and drove off. The village was small, and it didn't take him long to locate her. He saw Abigail frying yam under the warm evening sun. James dropped to his knees and pleaded, "Please forgive me." Abigail looked confused. She didn't recognize him at first. "What? I don't understand. Who are you?" she asked. "James," responded quietly. "I'm the boy you once helped in the village, the same one who caused you to lose your job and brought pain to your family." Oh, now I remember," Abigail said, her voice trembling. "Please, stand up." She gave him a warm hug and smiled widely. "Sit down and let me serve you some yam. I fed you once before. Let me do it again." James sat and was served hot fried yam. Later, Abigail's daughter came in and James was introduced to her. He sincerely apologized, saying, "I am truly sorry for all the pain I caused your family. Please forgive me." Joy smiled kindly and replied, "We never held anything against you. We thank God you're safe." James returned the smile and said, "Just like your mother, so kind, loving and gentle. Thank you." He spent the evening at their home, sharing laughter and memories. The next morning, James gave them a generous amount of money and promised to do all he could to lift them out of poverty before returning to the city. Once back, James told Madam Judith everything that had happened. She assured him that something meaningful would be done for Abigail and her family. That very day, Madam Judith called her architect to begin designing a grand project in Abigail's honor. 5 months later, the building was completed. James returned to the village and brought Abigail and her family to the city to meet Madam Judith. As they arrived, Madam Judith said, "My son has told me how you helped him and how much you suffered because of it. We have a small token of appreciation for you." She led them to a newly constructed secondary school, complete with classrooms, hostels, and staff quarters. "This is all yours. You can start your own secondary school here. The principal's quarters will now be your home." Tears of joy streamed down Abigail's cheeks. It was far beyond anything she had ever imagined. It felt as if Madam Judith had seen into her heart. Abigail had always dreamed of owning a boarding school where she could support and care for young students. And now that dream had come true. "All this belongs to us?" Abigail asked in disbelief. "Yes," James said, smiling. Abigail turned to her husband with eyes full of tears and whispered, "Look, God has truly answered our prayers." Her husband stood speechless, overwhelmed by the transformation of their lives. The entire family poured their hearts into making the school a success. James provided Abigail with millions of naira to kickstart the institution. In time, the same people who once mocked Abigail came seeking her assistance. Many even applied for jobs as cleaners at the school. Abigail helped as many as she could. The school quickly rose to become one of the finest private institutions in the country. All the years of hardship and struggle melted away. Abigail and her family went on to live happy and prosperous lives. Thanks for watching and may God bless. Don't forget to give this video a like, share with someone, comment, subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more video.